Another way to work with the pain of grief is to find some meaning in your loss. Recent studies have shown that up to 70% of people can experience what is considered to be post-traumatic growth after a significant loss or other trauma. As you'll see in the graph I've led here, our well-being prior to a negative event is relatively stable. After the negative event, our emotional well-being, physical well-being, and even spiritual well-being takes a dip. After time, our well-being stabilizes again after increasing. However, in up to 70% of people, we see what is happening with the green line on the right-hand side of the graph, and that our well-being actually stabilizes at a higher level than it did prior to the loss. Here are some ways to identify post-traumatic growth in yourself. Do you experience an improvement in your relationships? Do you feel more in touch with your strengths and/or boundaries? Have you experienced spiritual growth? Did you experience an enhanced appreciation for life and a change in focus or priorities? And do you have the sensation of a sense of new opportunities? When you're in a scenario where you cannot succumb to a wave of emotion, there are techniques to regulate or control your emotions. It's important to note that your emotions must be dealt with later, preferably in the same day. For example, if you're in a grocery store, you may not want to burst into tears, wail, or curl into the fetal position. So you can use these techniques to temporarily control the emotions. But this is like putting them in a little locked box that must be open and dealt with later. Otherwise, there may be negative consequences. For example, when you get home from the grocery store and unload all the groceries, allow yourself to cry, scream, call out, or curl under a blanket. If the emotions do not come back naturally, you can trigger them on purpose, such as by looking at mementos, listening to sad music, etc. Our first skill is called pendulation. To do this, locate where the emotion and/or pain exist in your body. Many people feel grief in their chest, head, or gut. Next, locate a place in your body where the emotion or pain does not exist. For example, your feet, your hands, or even one thumbnail. In your mind, imagine swinging your focus between these two places in your body, repeating, "It hurts in my chest. It does not hurt in my finger. It hurts in my chest. It does not hurt in my finger." The idea behind this skill is that your brain will begin to focus on where it does not hurt or feel so intensely, thereby allowing the pain to subside. Our next skill is distraction by focusing on our feet. Human brains can only truly focus on one thing at a time. When the pain or emotion becomes too overwhelming in an environment where you do not want to express said pain or emotion, drop all awareness into your feet. Think, what do my feet feel like in my shoe? What does it feel to shift my weight between my feet? Is the ground beneath me hard, soft, warm, or cold? Can I wiggle my toes? Is there any pinching in my shoes, or are they perfectly worn to the shape of my feet? What sensations do my socks bring? Is the fabric soft or scratchy? Again, the idea here is that by focusing on our feet so intensely, the wave of emotion should hopefully pass. Asking when is grief finished is like asking how high is up. Grief takes time. And like I said earlier, it is a journey, not an emotion. However, the good news is that eventually things will become less painful. I love this graphic here because it really encapsulates how grief works. When we first enter our grief journey, it is like a huge rucksack that weighs 75 pounds and that we are lugging everywhere. It is obvious to everyone around us, and it can be completely debilitating. Over time, grief becomes more like a briefcase. It is still quite obvious, and it could be burdensome. For example, you can't do tasks that require two hands because one of them is always carrying the briefcase. Eventually, grief becomes a small satchel that is slung over our shoulders. Sometimes we may even forget that it's there, but if we need to, we can take it and look at it and observe it. It is still with us, and we still carry it with us wherever we go, because our love of the person or thing that was lost will never go away. However, we are able to get on with our lives more effectively. Thank you so much for joining me on this presentation. I hope it provided some useful information or comfort for you. And again, do not hesitate to reach out to me via email if you have any follow-up questions.